The lock clicked behind me at 2:47 a.m. I stood there in the parking lot, key card in hand, staring at room 12. The door was already open, just a crack, enough to see the darkness bleeding through. I hadn't opened it. I was sure of that. But something inside was breathing. Motels have a way of holding on to things, memories, voices, people who checked in but never really left. This is what happens when you stop for the night in places the highway forgot. 5 true stories, 5 rooms, and something waiting in each one. I'm about to tell you what really happened. The Eastview Motel sat 40 miles outside Bakersfield, California. One of those places you only find when you're desperate or lost. My name is Marcus, and I was both. It was late October, past midnight, and my car had started overheating near the exit. Steam poured from under the hood, thick and white in the headlights. I pulled off into the dark and saw the motel sign flickering against the desert sky. Half the letters were burned out. It just read, East U. The parking lot was cracked asphalt and weeds. 3 cars sat scattered across the spaces, all of them covered in dust like they hadn't moved in weeks. The office was a small box of yellow light at the end of the building. I could see someone sitting behind the desk through the window, not moving, just sitting there in the fluorescent glow. The office smelled like cigarettes and old carpet. The clerk was maybe 60, thin, with hollow eyes that didn't blink much. His skin was gray, papery, like he'd been working night shifts for 30 years straight. He slid the key across the counter without a word. Room 12, ground floor, end of the row. Floor, end of. I asked if there was anything I should know. He stared at me. Then he said, "Don't open the bathroom door after midnight." I laughed, thought he was messing with me. He didn't laugh back. His face stayed completely blank. No expression, no emotion, just those hollow eyes watching me. I took the key and left. The air outside was cold, desert cold, the kind that cuts through your jacket and settles in your bones. The room was what you'd expect. Stained carpet, a bed that sagged in the middle, a TV that hummed even when it was off. The bathroom door was at the far end, next to a closet with no light. I tossed my bag on the bed and sat down. The springs creaked like they were in pain. It was quiet. Too quiet. No cars outside. No voices through the walls. Just that hum from the TV and the sound of my own breathing. The wallpaper was peeling near the ceiling. Water stains spread across the plaster like bruises. Brown and yellow. The air conditioning unit rattled every few minutes, coughing out lukewarm air that smelled faintly of mold and something else. Something sweet and rotten. The curtains were thick and heavy, blocking out any light from the parking lot. I checked my phone. No signal. Of course, I tried to sleep, but around 1:30 a.m. I heard it. A dripping sound. Slow, rhythmic, coming from the bathroom. Drip. Drip, drip. I lay there for a while, trying to ignore it, but the sound grew louder, more insistent, like it wanted my attention. Each drip seemed to echo in the silence. I got up and stood in front of the door. My hand hovered over the handle. I remembered what the clerk said. Don't open the bathroom door after midnight. But it was just a leaking faucet, right? Old plumbing in an old building, nothing more. I twisted the handle and pulled. The bathroom was dark. I flipped the switch. Nothing happened. The bulb was dead, but enough light spilled in from the bedroom for me to see the outline of the sink, the toilet, the shower curtain, hanging perfectly still, and the mirror above the sink. In the mirror, I saw something. A shape standing behind me, pale, wet, dripping. I spun around. Nothing there. I looked back at the mirror. It was gone. My hands were shaking. I reached for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swept it across the bathroom. Empty. The shower curtain was still. The corners were empty, just shadows and chipped tile. Rust stains in the tub, mold creeping along the grout. But the dripping continued. I aimed the light at the sink. The faucet was dry, not even a drop. I checked the shower. Nothing. The toilet tank, bone dry. So where was the sound coming from? I stood there in the doorway, frozen, listening to that steady drip, drip, drip. And then I realized something that made my stomach turn. The sound wasn't coming from the bathroom at all. It was coming from inside the walls. I backed away and slammed the door. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I sat on the bed, staring at that door, telling myself I imagined it. Exhaustion, stress, the desert playing tricks. Maybe the clerk was just a weird old man trying to scare travelers. Maybe this was some kind of joke they played on guests. But then the door started to open. Slowly, an inch at a time. I didn't move. I couldn't. The bathroom was completely dark now. No light from the bedroom reached inside. It was like staring into a void, a black hole in the middle of the room. And then I saw a hand, pale, fingers too long, nails cracked and black. It curled around the edge of the door and pushed. The door opened wider, and I saw her, a woman, soaking wet, hair plastered to her face, eyes wide and glassy, milky white, like cataracts. She wore a nightgown that clung to her skin, dripping water onto the carpet. She didn't blink, didn't breathe. She just stood there, staring at me. Water pooled at her feet. Dark water. It spread across the carpet, inching toward the bed. And then she smiled. Her mouth opened too wide, too far, like her jaw was unhinged. I grabbed my bag and ran. I didn't stop until I was back in my car, engine screaming, tires kicking gravel as I tore out of that parking lot. I looked in the rearview mirror once. The door to room 12 was wide open, and something was standing in the doorway, watching me leave. I drove until the sun came up, pulled into a gas station 2 towns over, and sat there shaking. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I bought coffee and tried to calm down, tried to convince myself it was a dream, a hallucination, carbon monoxide poisoning from the heater. But my shoes were wet. I called the motel the next day from a diner. The number was disconnected. I looked it up online. The Eastview Motel burned down in 2003, 20 years before I stayed there. A woman died in room 12, drowned in the bathtub. They found her 3 days later. The article said she'd been dead for at least a week, but the water in the tub was still running, still filling. But I have the key card. It's sitting on my desk right now. Room 12. And sometimes, late at night, I hear dripping, even though I live in an apartment on the 3rd floor with no pipes above me. Before we go further into the dark, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because here at Chills from Reality, every story leaves a scar, and some of them never heal. If you've ever had a strange experience in a motel, drop it in the comments. Maybe someone else stayed in that same room. Maybe they saw her too. The second story comes from a woman named Claire. She was driving cross-country in the summer of 2019, moving from North Carolina to Oregon after a bad breakup. She wanted distance, space, silence. She'd packed everything she owned into her Honda Civic and hit the road. No plan, no timeline, just driving west until the ocean stopped her. But somewhere in the middle of Kansas, on a 2-lane road that barely had a name, she found something else. It was a motel called the Sunset Inn. The sign was hand-painted, faded red letters on white wood. The parking lot was empty except for one truck with no plates, rust-eaten and sitting on flat tires. Claire pulled in just before sunset. The sky was burning red and orange, and the motel looked like it hadn't been updated since the 70s. Wooden doors, rust on the railings, a vending machine that didn't work. Spiderwebs in the corners. The woman at the front desk was older, maybe 70, soft-spoken. She smiled too much. Her teeth were too white. Too perfect. She asked Claire where she was headed. Claire said Oregon. The woman nodded slowly and said, "Long way to go." There was something about the way she said it, like she knew Claire wouldn't make it. Claire asked for a room on the second floor. The woman said they only had one available. Room 23. Claire paid in cash and took the key. It was an actual key, heavy, old brass. The number was engraved deep into the metal, worn smooth from decades of hands. The stairs creaked under her feet. The second-floor hallway was narrow and dim, yellow light from old bulbs. Stained carpet that might have been blue once. The walls were wood paneling, dark, warped. She found room 23 at the end of the hall. The room smelled like dust and lavender. The bed was made too perfectly. Hospital corners, no wrinkles. The curtains were thick and dark, blocking out the last light of the day. Claire locked the door, checked the windows, and lay down. She was exhausted, the kind of tired that makes your bones ache. She fell asleep within minutes, but she woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of knocking. Soft, deliberate, 3 taps. She sat up in bed listening. Her heart was already racing. It came again. 3 taps on the door. She walked over and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Dim yellow light. Stained carpet. No one there. She pressed her ear to the door. Silence. Complete silence. Not even the hum of electricity or the creak of old wood. She backed away, told herself it was the wind, a prank, someone at the wrong room. But then the knocking came again. Louder, harder, and this time it wasn't on the door. It was on the window. Claire's blood went cold. She was on the second floor. There was nothing outside that window but a 15-foot drop to concrete. She moved toward the curtain, slowly, heart hammering in her chest. Her hand trembled as she reached for the fabric. She pulled it back just an inch. A face was pressed against the glass. Pale, smiling, eyes too wide, unblinking, bloodshot. It whispered her name. Not loud, not shouted, whispered, like it was right next to her ear. She screamed and fell back, grabbed her phone. No signal. The screen flickered and died. She ran to the door, fumbling with the lock, hands shaking so badly she could barely turn it. She yanked the door open and bolted into the hallway. The lights were flickering, buzzing, on and off, on and off. And at the end of the hall, standing perfectly still, was a man. He was facing away from her, wearing a gray suit. He didn't move, didn't turn, didn't breathe. Claire ran the other way, down the stairs, into the parking lot. Her car was still there. She jumped in, locked the doors, and started the engine. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the wheel. As she pulled out, she looked up at the second floor. Every window had a face in it, all of them staring down at her, all of them smiling, the same smile, the same face, over and over and over. She didn't stop driving until the sun came up. She pulled over at a rest stop and sat there crying, shaking. She tried to find the Sunset Inn later, using GPS and maps. It wasn't there. No record, no reviews, no address. She searched online for hours. Nothing. She even called the Kansas Highway Patrol. They'd never heard of it. But on her phone, buried in her photos, was a picture she didn't remember taking. It was her asleep in the bed, taken from inside the room, from the foot of the bed, while she was alone. The timestamp read 2:37 a.m., 16 minutes before the knocking started. And if you looked closely in the corner of the photo, you could see something. A shadow, shaped like a person, standing in the bathroom doorway, watching her sleep. The third story is mine. I didn't want to include it, but after hearing the others, I realized I couldn't avoid it anymore. It happened 5 years ago in a small town in West Virginia. I was covering a story for a podcast about missing persons in rural America. The town was called Greylock. Population 340, 1 main street, 1 diner, 1 gas station, 1 motel. It was called the Pineview Lodge. I checked in late on a Thursday. The guy at the desk barely looked at me. Maybe 40? Beard? Flannel shirt? Tired eyes. He just handed me a key. Actual metal key. Room 7, I asked if there was food nearby. He said no, everything closes at 8. I asked if the vending machine worked. He said no, been broken for years. Then he said something I didn't understand at the time. He said, if you hear your name, don't answer. I laughed nervously. He didn't. His face stayed completely serious. I didn't ask what he meant. I should have. Room 7 was small. 1 bed, 1 chair, a bathroom with a cracked mirror. The heater rattled but didn't work. I set up my laptop and started going through notes. The interviews I'd done that day, police reports, newspaper clippings. 3 people had gone missing in Greylock over the past 2 years. All of them stayed at the Pineview Lodge before they disappeared. All of them in room 7. Around 11 p.m., I heard voices outside, low, muffled, like people talking through a wall. I looked through the window but didn't see anyone. The parking lot was empty, except for my car and an old pickup truck. No lights on in any other rooms. No movement. I went back to work. Then I heard it. My name? Whispered. From the bathroom. I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I told myself I imagined it. Fatigue? Stress? My mind playing tricks. It came again, clearer this time. Come here. My voice, not just my name, my actual voice, calling to myself. I stood up. My legs were shaking. I walked toward the bathroom and stopped at the door. It was cracked open, just barely. I could see the edge of the mirror, and in the reflection, I saw someone standing behind me. But when I turned around, no one was there. I looked back at the mirror. The figure was still there, closer now. It looked exactly like me. Same clothes, same face, but the eyes were wrong. Empty, black. I ran out of the room, into the parking lot. The air was freezing. My breath came out in clouds. I looked back at room 7. The door was closed. I hadn't closed it. And in the window, I saw my own face, staring back at me, smiling. But I wasn't smiling. I got in my car and left. I never finished that story, never went back to Greylock, never published the podcast episode. But 2 months later, I got a voicemail. No number, just static. And at the end, a voice, my voice, saying, you should have answered. I deleted it, changed my number, moved to a different state. But sometimes, late at night, my phone rings. And when I pick up, no one's there, just breathing. And the sound of a door creaking open. Footsteps on carpet. Getting closer! I looked into the Pineview Lodge after that. Found old records. 6 people had gone missing from that motel over the past 15 years. All of them stayed in room 7. None of them were ever found. The motel is still there, still open, and room 7 is still available. I called once just to see. The same man answered. I asked if room 7 was available. He said yes. Then he asked if I'd been there before. I hung up because he called me by my name. And I never told him who I was. The 4th story comes from a truck driver named David. He'd been on the road for 15 years, seen every highway, every rest stop, every forgotten town between coast and coast. He thought he'd seen it all, until he stopped at the Midnight Rest Motel in northern Montana. It was February, the dead of winter. Snow piled high on the sides of the road. The temperature had dropped to 10 below zero. David's rig had been running for 12 hours straight, and he needed sleep. He saw the sign for the Midnight Rest and pulled off the interstate. The motel was old, built in the 60s maybe. Single story, 8 rooms. The neon sign buzzed and flickered. The parking lot was empty. No other cars, no other trucks. Just his. The office door was unlocked. A bell chimed when he walked in, but no one was at the desk. He waited, called out. Nothing. Then he noticed a key sitting on the counter. Room 4, a handwritten note next to it said, $40. Cash only? Leave it in the drawer. He left 2 20s in the desk drawer and took the key. Room 4 was at the far end. The lock was stiff. He had to force it. Inside, the room was freezing, colder than outside. His breath came out in clouds. The heater didn't work. The windows were frosted over. Thick ice on the inside of the glass. David kept his coat on and lay down on the bed. He was exhausted. He closed his eyes. But sleep didn't come because he heard footsteps outside his door. Back and forth, slow, deliberate, pacing. He got up and looked through the peephole. No one there, but the footsteps continued. He opened the door. The cold hit him like a wall. The walkway outside was covered in fresh snow, undisturbed, no footprints, but the sound continued, right outside his door. He closed it and locked it. The footsteps stopped. He went back to bed, tried to sleep. Then he heard scratching on the window, slow, methodical, like nails on glass. He turned on the light and looked. Something was written in the frost. Get out. David grabbed his keys and left. He didn't even pack his bag. He got in his truck and started the engine. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he looked back at room 4. A figure stood in the window, watching him. Pale, motionless. He drove through the night without stopping. The next day, he called the Montana State Patrol, asked about the Midnight Rest Motel. They had no record of it. He tried to find it on maps. Nothing. He even drove back to that exit a month later. There was no motel, just an empty field. But when he got home, he found something in his truck, in the passenger seat. His bag, the one he'd left in room 4. And inside the bag, folded neatly, was a note. It said, "You'll be back." David quit trucking 2 weeks later. But sometimes, when he's driving at night, he sees the sign, the Midnight Rest, flickering in the distance. And no matter which road he takes, it's always there, waiting. The 5th story is the worst, because it happened to a family. Their names were the Hendersons, Tom, Sarah, and their 8-year-old daughter, Emma. They were driving from Phoenix to Seattle in the summer of 2021, a long road trip, stops along the way. They'd been on the road for 2 days when they pulled off in southern Idaho, a small town called Clearwater. They needed a place to sleep. They found a motel called the Whispering Pines. It looked nice, clean, well-maintained. The woman at the front desk was friendly. She gave them 2 adjoining rooms, rooms 14 and 15, Tom and Sarah in one, Emma in the other. The door between them stayed open. They ordered pizza, watched TV. Emma fell asleep around 9. Tom and Sarah stayed up a little longer. They were tired, happy. The trip was going well. But at 2 a.m., Sarah woke up to the sound of Emma talking. She listened. Emma's voice was coming from the other room, soft, like she was having a conversation. Sarah got up and walked to the door. She looked into Emma's room. Emma was sitting up in bed, facing the corner, talking to someone. Sarah asked who she was talking to. Emma turned and smiled. She said, "The lady." Sarah's blood froze. She asked what lady. Emma pointed to the corner. "The lady in the white dress. She says she used to live here." Sarah turned on the light. The corner was empty. She told Emma it was just a dream. "Come sleep in their room." Emma said okay. But as they walked back, Emma stopped. She looked back at the corner and waved. The next morning, they checked out early. Didn't say why, just left. But during the drive, Emma kept talking about the lady. She said the lady told her things, secrets, about the motel, about the people who stayed there. Emma said the lady told her that some people check in but never leave. They stay in the walls, in the mirrors, waiting. Tom and Sarah tried to laugh it off. Kids have wild imaginations. But that night, when they stopped at another motel, Emma refused to sleep alone. She said the lady followed them. She could see her in the bathroom mirror, standing behind her, smiling. A week after they got home, Sarah was going through the photos from the trip, and she found something that made her drop the phone. A photo of Emma asleep in the bed, at the Whispering Pines, taken from inside the room. And in the corner, barely visible, was a figure, a woman in a white dress, standing over Emma, watching her sleep. They never took that photo. Sarah called the motel, asked about room 15, asked if anything had ever happened there. The woman on the phone was silent for a long time. Then she said, "We don't rent that room anymore." Sarah asked why. The woman hung up. Emma is 12 now. She doesn't talk about the lady anymore, but sometimes, late at night, Sarah hears her daughter talking, whispering to someone, and when she asks who, Emma just says, "She wants me to come back." Motels aren't just places you sleep. They're places people disappear, rooms that remember, doors that don't always lead where they should. And sometimes, when you check out, a part of you stays behind, waiting for the next guest, watching from the mirrors, calling from the walls, following you home. If this story made your heart race, hit that like button and subscribe. Because here at Chills from Reality, the fear doesn't end when the story does. Drop a comment below if you've ever stayed somewhere that didn't feel right. Maybe you weren't as alone as you thought. Maybe something followed you home. Maybe it's still there, watching, waiting. Turn off the lights and sleep well, if you can.